Several months later.
Nike is laying off approximately 2% of its workforce. According to a letter sent to employees, the first round of layoffs will start as early as Friday and go through next week. This comes after the company announced a major $2 billion cost-saving plan back in December. Nike is one of the region's largest employers with more than 15,000 workers in the Portland and Southwest Washington area.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about another classic Get Woke, Go Broke story featuring Nike, who not only is woke, but they're also a brand of China, according to their CEO, Mr. Joe Donohue.
We participate in sport all over the world, including China. China is a very important market for us. We have a long-term history in China. You know, Phil Knight, our founder, was in China 40 years ago, beginning to build what's now an incredible consumer connection that Chinese consumers have with Nike, with Jordan, with Converse. And so we continue to invest in China. We have over 7,000 monobrand stores in China through our Chinese partners. We're the #1 sports brand on Tmall, have been for the last decade, still are today. And so we take a very long-term view in China. We're continuing to invest in China, and we'll continue to invest in China, while also operating a very responsible global supply chain.
Well, you told an analyst on the conference call last quarter that you are a brand, you said we are a brand of China and for China, which got a lot of attention given the attention from the U.S. and around the world on the human rights issues, the brutal clampdown on Hong Kong, questions about where COVID-19 came from. Do you feel like you have to sacrifice your values at all as a company to do business there and to continue to grow and continue those deep roots that you talked about Nike has there?
Not at all, Sarah. We connect to consumers in markets all over the world. And so I could say go into any country around the world and say consumers in that market consider Nike a brand of their market for them. And that's one of the reasons Nike's been so globally successful. And we operate very aligned with our values, always have been, always will, including throughout our entire supply chain. And so this is simply part of the challenges of operating a global brand in global markets. And we've navigated that very well for 50 years, and we will continue to do that.
Yeah, so that interview was in response to criticism that Mr. Joe Donohue had received for Nike apparently being woke. They care so much about so-called human rights issues here in the United States, aka social justice. Remember, Nike was bankrolling the Black Lives Matter movement, the movement that essentially was destroying these liberal cities. There was violence and destruction and chaos that, again, was being bankrolled by these liberal companies. But at the same time, they were silent in China on the human rights issues that they are participating in when it comes to using child labor and also their treatment of the Uyghurs. So in response to that, again, Nike is basically saying, well, look, we got to operate everywhere. We're trying to sell shoes to everybody. And in China, we are a brand for and by China. Basically saying, look, we're going to do whatever we can to sell shoes there, even if we look like hypocrites in regards to our stances on so-called human rights issues and social justice. Because we know if we start making a big fuss about the alleged human rights issues in China, they're going to kick us out. They're not going to allow us to make money. And that's going to be a problem, okay? And, a part of the agenda that Nike is pushing here in the United States that they wouldn't dare push in China happens to be the woke agenda, not just when it comes to social justice, but when it comes to other issues as well, too, okay? And I believe that's part of the reason why they started sponsoring Dylan Mulvaney, who is a famous transgender influencer. And when I mean famous, I mean just famous on the internet, not famous in real life, because when Dylan shows up to real life events, he doesn't really seem to garner much of an audience or a real following, considering how this person has, over 10 million followers on TikTok? Again, something's not adding up. Something's not adding up. And I think there's more evidence here that something's not adding up, that a lot of this could just be manufactured. Because, again, Nike sponsored Dylan, and despite giving this sponsorship to Dylan, in which they paid Dylan at least $150K per post, Nike's struggling, okay? They're struggling, okay? Despite being a brand for and by China and sponsoring the woke movement over here in the United States, they are struggling so bad that they are issuing a 2% layoff of employees, cutting more than 1,500 jobs, doing broad restructuring. I mean, if you look at their stock price, not doing too well this past year. Year to date, they're down 2.85%. And it's only been a couple months in the year. It's only February. In the past year, over the past year, they're down 14.53%. This is not good for Nike. If you invested money in Nike over the past year, you've most likely lost a significant amount of your money, especially compared to investing in just the market as a whole. And this is why you should be diversified when you're thinking about investing at all. Okay. And that is why the sponsor of this video is Noble Gold. Have you guys taken a good look at the banks lately? Now, on the surface, everything may seem fine, but there's a whole lot more going on underneath. It's like looking under the hood of a car and finding a mess of broken wires and parts. The parts are loans for homes, cars, and the credit cards that we use. They're all hitting record highs. It's really scary when you think about it. Why risk your money for a tiny 5% when things are so shaky? This is where Noble Gold can help. They're like that friend that knows all about how to keep money safe. They suggest gold and silver, oldies but goodies in the finance world. Plus, they've got a sweet deal, a 1/4 ounce gold standard coin this month if you qualify. That sounds pretty cool, right? If you're curious, just give them a call at 877-646-5347. That is 877-646-5347. And don't worry, it's just a chat, no pressure. They will help you figure out if gold and silver are right for you. Or you can visit noblegoldinvestments.com and take the first step towards a safer, more secure financial future. And just remember, there's a risk with every investment and there's no guarantee of any kind.
Nike is dropping 2% of its global workforce, which is more than 1,600 jobs. In an email to employees Thursday, Nike CEO John Donahoe said, "We are not currently performing at our best, and I ultimately hold myself and the leadership accountable. This is a really painful reality and not one I take lightly." The sneaker and apparel brand experienced a significant slowdown in sales, leading them to come up with a plan to save $2 billion over the next 3 years. But what does this mean for the Pacific Northwest, with over 15,500 Nike employees in Portland and Southwest Washington?
Because there's 0 degrees of separation between Nike people and Portland. Because not only do you have employees that work at Nike, you have family members, and you have extended family and friends that work at the brand or have an association with the brands.
That's Jana Panafilio. She worked at Nike for over 29 years. After leaving, she created an alumni group for past Nike employees called 6453 Alumni.
We'd like to say that we're here to support as a landing place for those people as they leave the brand to make their transition from Nike to Next.
The first round of layoffs start Friday and go into next week. Jana says 6453 Alumni Group will help those laid off, connecting them with other Nike alumni in various fields.
There's a disproportionate number of former Nike people start their own companies, so they're looking for talent and they're looking for clients, and so there's, depending on what it is that they're looking to do or want to do or what kind of help that they need, we have the resources to help them.
Now, this isn't the end of Nike's downsizing. At the end of May, they'll have another round of layoffs.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Nike's struggling. It seems as if maybe sponsoring woke influencers and claiming that you are a brand for and by China, clearly being hypocritical on this issue of so-called social justice and human rights. Maybe that didn't work out too well, right? Maybe that backfired, okay? I mean, the first thing I would do if I was Nike is to come out here and unequivocally state, we're an American company, right? We're going to put America first, okay? That's what I would do if I was Nike, okay? And then I would stay out of politics, okay? I would probably reconsider, right, some of these sponsorships. I mean, look at what happened to Bud Light, okay? Bud Light, their business got destroyed when they went woke. You have Victoria's Secret, they went woke. Their business got destroyed. All of these businesses that go woke, they tend to get destroyed. I mean, look at Sports Illustrated. Went woke, destroyed, issuing mass layoffs. How many times does this have to happen before companies realize that get woke, go broke is a real thing, right? It is a real thing. It happens over and over and over and over again. But for the people that still deny get woke, go broke, I got a question. If it's not get woke, go broke, then what is it? Because the mainstream liberal media tries to convince us that the U.S. economy is doing well. However, with all of these massive layoffs that are happening, it would seem to suggest the opposite, which is why Americans are still feeling bad about the state of the economy. Again, you have layoffs that are happening with big tech. I mean, look at the LA Times. They're woke as well, too. I think that's a get woke, go broke story, too. They're issuing mass layoffs. I mean, there are mass layoff stories happening everywhere, right? But the media is trying to convince us that the economy is doing so great. I mean, you even have UPS that has come out here and issue massive layoffs.
Louisville's largest employer is downsizing. UPS says it will cut 12,000 jobs.
The Atlanta-based company, which maintains its global air hub here in Louisville, reported lower revenue during its all-important year-end quarter. Job cuts are slated to come from UPS management ranks.
WDRB.com business reporter Chris Otts is here to break it down. So, Chris, what do we know about these cuts, and really how is it going to impact us here locally?
Well, we don't know exactly where the cuts are coming from, but we do know that they're from the 85,000 managers that UPS has around the world. They have about 500,000 employees in total. And here in Louisville, you know, we have the global air hub, and the vast majority of the 25,000 or so UPS people we have here are not management. They're hourly, they're package handlers, drivers, mechanics, airline pilots, etc. We do have the headquarters of the UPS Airlines division, so there are managers here for sure, and UPS isn't breaking down by location where the cuts are going to come from, and the employees should be notified over the next few months.
Chris, we saw UPS give out big raises last summer. Is that what is causing this announcement of cutbacks today?
Yeah, so they had that big fight with the Teamsters union, and they did give up a lot to avoid a strike. But take a look at this graphic. Here's the real reason this is happening. UPS's business had a real sugar high during the pandemic when we were all at home ordering things online. And we've now seen 3 straight years of their volume, the amount of packages that they're handling, declining. Their revenue was down last year. Next year it'll tick up a little bit, but still not be where it was during that 2020-2021 surge. So UPS is trying to figure out how can they keep delivering as much dividends and share buybacks and rewards to their share owners while dealing with a smaller business.
It also should be said, we're seeing this at home. You have the numbers in the graphic there, but how many times do you order a package and now see Amazon delivering it?
Correct.
Itself.
See, so Amazon is UPS's largest customer, and they even talk about this in code. They talk about declining volume amongst our largest customers. So something like 10% of UPS's volume in the U.S. is Amazon, and Amazon has been insourcing more of that, still reliant on UPS, particularly in those more rural areas where Amazon doesn't have the coverage with its own delivery service. But that is something that is for sure at play here, and UPS is trying to, do more healthcare related things, more higher dollar, vaccine storage and cold storage and things like that that bring in a bigger amount of revenue as opposed to just shipping Amazon packages.
Yeah, so you see now, you heard that, okay? UPS is struggling in the post-COVID economy, and it could be a cyclical business thing in the sense that, with more people going back to work and not relying on packages being delivered and things like that as much as they were during the pandemic, maybe this is just a part of the normal business cycle for a company like UPS. But again, it does suggest that a lot of these companies over-invested with all of the free money that came from the government in the form of handouts, massive spending, also record low interest rates were happening during the pandemic, and they overgrew, okay? There was a lot of money being pushed out there, and they used that money to hire in places that were unnecessary, like, for example, diversity, equity, and inclusion, okay? And these hires weren't actually a positive return on investment. They were doing this to virtue signal how woke they are, right? But now that the party's over, okay, you have quantitative tightening that is happening from the Federal Reserve. Again, you had interest rates rise rapidly in response to inflation rising rapidly, and interest rates have essentially remained elevated. They haven't been cut yet. You're seeing the consequences of that, right? When you have to have economic contractions, you have these companies responding as a result, but yet they're telling us that the economy is great, right? That Joe Biden's economy is great, everything is good, even though you're seeing layoffs across the board. Okay, what I think is happening is that the economy was bloated in regards to what was happening during the pandemic from all the government spending. And now you're seeing the consequences of too much government spending, which is that these companies have to downsize due to overspending and overinvestment during the pandemic. And I think that's probably part of the reason why you're seeing these massive layoffs is because the free money game is up, right? It's over. Okay, that party's over. And now it's not as easy to borrow money. It costs more to invest and it's becoming more difficult to operate in this environment. The economy is just simply not as good as they're telling us that it is. And again, this is what you're saying. It makes sense. That's why there's a disconnect between what people are feeling, okay, and what the Biden administration is saying and what the government numbers are allegedly saying about the economy. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.